Bring in Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy with me now, a doctor, a member of the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. And, sir, you were booked to come on our show to talk about this. We weren't quite sure we were going to get it, and now we do. 6-3 Obamacare lives. Your reaction?
Well, it sounds like the majority opinion was one of expediency. We don't particularly care how the law reads because we're afraid of the disruption. And I agree, this should now be called SCOTUS care. On the other hand, to suggest that there's not been disruption is an absurdity. When you have $6,000 deductibles, premiums increasing by 60% per year, that is disruption. Let me say one more thing. I was listening to some of the feed earlier suggesting that Republicans did not have a plan should SCOTUS Supreme Court strike it down. I, for one, had a plan, Patient Freedom Act, that gave the patient the power, not a Washington bureaucrat. I beg to differ to say that we do not have a plan.
Now, what was the idea overall to extend the subsidies until the next presidential election? That was not my idea. Was coalescing or not?
My idea was to take that portion which I wished had been vacated by the Supreme Court based upon a plain reading of the law and replace it with something which repealed the mandates, gave control of insurance back to the states as opposed to the federal government, took the money the state would have received otherwise and divided among those who had need. And in so doing, replaced permanently that portion of Obamacare struck down by a plain reading of the law. But in the case of either Obamacare or SCOTUS care, as Justice Scalia called it, that unfortunately we will not have the opportunity to give the patient the power instead of a bureaucrat.
But so your idea then, Senator, was to find a way, to find a bridge to keep the subsidies in place so nobody lost their insurance, correct?
My plan was, again, to strike down the mandates, which are frankly un-American, the federal government telling people what to do. By so doing, also giving states the option to enroll people unless they chose to opt out. Obamacare has left 30 million people uninsured. 30 million uninsured. Under our plan, states would have the option to enroll someone unless they opted out. Imagine that schizophrenic beneath the bridge, they would have been enrolled. And we would have equalized the tax treatment of those who get their insurance through their employer and those who buy it on their own, giving credits, tax credits, to those who buy it on their own equal to that credit those who get it through their employer receive. And then they would use that to buy the insurance of their choice, not that insurance forced upon them by an Obamacare bureaucrat.
There's a lot of reaction coming in. Hillary Clinton sent out a tweet. We'll read that in a moment here. But I want you to specifically respond to this issue that John Roberts wrote. The act gives each state the opportunity to establish its own exchange, but provides that the federal government will establish the exchange if the state does not. Then you see the 4 words that were debated for months, established by the state. So if this ruling continues as is, would you then expect the governors in the states who did not set up an exchange to go ahead and do that? Or
I do not. I do not. Why would you? The state exchanges are going bankrupt. I mean, seriously, going bankrupt. California's is like losing $4 million a year because, by the way, no one else is enrolling in Obamacare as a percent of the population. We're doubling down on a policy, on a train wreck in slow motion. So Hawaii cannot afford to maintain their state exchange. I cannot imagine a governor setting up something which every other experience has been, it is failing.
Well, if that's the case, Doctor, the president owns this law. The president owns this law. And if you're here to make the case that it's failing, well, he owns it.
He owns it. And, by the way, Hillary Clinton owns it. And the whole left owns it. And that would be what is litigated this next presidential race. So when somebody's premiums have gone up 150% since the law was passed, and they were told it would decrease, then hopefully they'll vote conservatively for a plan that will give them the power instead of a Washington bureaucrat to tell them what they have to buy.
One last question here. As you look at this campaign, who knows who the candidates will be for Republicans? Hillary Clinton, in all likelihood, will be the Democratic nominee. How does this debate, how is it shaped now for voters in the next election?
There's a great divide between the parties. The left, the Democratic Party, thinks that the government should tell us how to live, how to spend our money, what benefits we must buy, and if we don't, we get penalized under a mandate. The right says that the patient should have the power, that you should be in control of your dollar, not the federal government. I put my money on I think we will take that message to the White House.
Congress passed the Affordable Care Act to improve health insurance markets, not to destroy them. The words of John Roberts. Bill Cassidy, doctor, representative from Louisiana. Thank you, Senator, for being with us today. Bill Cassidy there in Washington.
Thank you.
You bet, Martha.
All right, let's bring in Karl Rove. He's the former White House Deputy Chief